So we're up to today's Amud is Yud Beis Amud Beis. After the show.
Why? You make the share even better.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's good. It's good. Okay. So I hope I don't get fired. Already sure that way. Okay. It's not so hard, by the way. It's actually not so hard. I remembered from when I was 14 the Ilon and the knife. It's not. Cheshbon. It's not so complicated. So today's Amud Yud Beis Amud Beis. We were up to the bottom of Yud Beis Amud Aleph, the new Mishnah, right? So it's behemshech to what we said till now. That in the previous Mishnah, the Mishnah says Kishem Shetei. Yeah, that the ear is koilet, but not just the ear, the tchum as well. The 2,000 amas surrounding the city. If the ritzech is to be found there, so then the goyel adam can't kill. So the question now is, what happens if you have a situation which is you have a tree which is somewhat within the tchum and somewhat without the tchum, and he's by the tree? So is it considered as if he's in the tchum and the goyel adam can kill him, or is he considered as if he's out of the tchum and the goyel adam cannot kill him? So let's see. So the Mishnah says like this: Ilon shu oimed b'soichat tchum. You have a tree. The tree itself, the trunk of the tree, in other words, is in the tchum. The noifay noite chutz the tchum, but the branches of the tree spread out to outside the tchum. Oy oimed chutz the tchum, the noifay noite b'soichat tchum. Hakoy lo lechach hanoif. In other words, we'll say outside first. The Mishnah assumes clearly that there's no. We don't say look at where the person is. The whole tree is either considered within the tchum at this stage of the Gemara, the Mishnah at least. And have them in the way we explain the Mishnah. The whole tree is either considered within the tchum or the whole tree is considered outside the tchum. Now you've got an issue. The trunk is inside and the branches are outside, or vice versa. The trunk is outside and the branches are inside. So how do you determine whether the person who's by the tree, who's standing on who's sitting on the tree, or who's by the trunk of the tree, how is he in the tchum or out of the tchum? So basically, the Mishnah says a klal god like kol hoilach achan wherever the branches are. The way the way we understand the Mishnah now is if the branches are outside the tchum, even if he's sitting inside the tchum by the trunk, he's going to be able to be killed. 2,000 amas outside of the city. No, I don't know if all the cities had walls necessarily, but the last house, yeah, exactly. And so that's what it says. Let's read inside the Mishnah. The tree is inside the trunk, and the branches are outside. All the other way around. All the tree is outside. Says Rashi. Even if the ritzech is leaning on the trunk, which is inside the tchum, he's considered as if he's outside of the tchum because the branch is outside the tchum. The goyel adam could kill him. And same thing the other way around. Right. So we'll see in the Gemara about that. You're right. In general, with regards to other dinim, other halachas, we go bust where the actual tree is planted, with the root, the trunk of the tree. But here we say that everything goes after the right, and therefore if you have a situation where the trunk is outside the tchum and the branches are inside the tchum, even though the ritzech is by the trunk, nevertheless, he's koila. So the kula and the chumrah at this stage. The Gemara and the Mishnah is to be understood that we go bust the branches. So what's the reason? We'll see that's in the Gemara, at least somewhat. So let's move for the moment. Spread the Gemara kasha raminu. We have a stira. What's the stira? The stira is that there's a Mishnah in Ma'aser Sheni, Perek Gimel Mishnah Zayin, which says the following with regards to Ma'aser Sheni. We know that the din of Ma'aser Sheni is that it has to be eaten two things. It has to be eaten in Yerushalayim, but there's a workaround. So the Ma'aser Sheni, you can be paid, you can redeem it, and then you take the money to Yerushalayim, and in Yerushalayim you use the money to buy something else, and the kedusha transfers to the money, and then from the money onto whatever you buy it, and that exactly. So but it's like this: the Ma'aser Sheni which your mamish schlep up to Yerushalayim has to be eaten in Yerushalayim, but Pediyah has to be done before you get to Yerushalayim. Once in Yerushalayim, it's too late to be paid. So we have to determine what's Yerushalayim and what's outside of Yerushalayim. So here we have a Mishnah about the similar situation where you have a tree which is inside Yerushalayim and the branches are outside, or vice versa. The tree is standing outside of Yerushalayim and the branches go into Yerushalayim. So the Mishnah says as follows: Ilon shu'oimed. The guy said Hagra Gimel says Ilon shu'oimed bifnim. Yeah, Ilon shu'oimed bifnim v'noite l'chutz. You have a tree which the trunk is in Yerushalayim and the branches are going outside, or the other way around. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says nothing to do with the branches. You look at where the person is. If the part of the tree which is inside the walls of the city is considered Yerushalayim for all its dinim, that you can eat ma'aser sheni, then you can't be paida, cannot be paida. And the other way around, if the person is found outside the part of the tree which is outside of the wall, then it's considered outside Yerushalayim, and he can't eat a ma'aser sheni, and he could yes be paida. Each one has a kol and a chumrah. Eating ma'aser sheni has to be done in Yerushalayim, but padiyah has to be done outside of Yerushalayim. So the Gemara asks a stira. Our Mishnah seems to say the whole tree gets determined by the branches, and the Mishnah in ma'aser sheni with regards to ma'aser sheni says that it all depends on where you are. We don't say the tree one part of the tree gets schlepped after the other. The trunk gets schlepped after the branches. So so the Gemara answers with almost challenging the whole premise of the question. Ma'isa Ari Mikla Karamis. You're asking a steer between Ma'isa and Ari Mikla. It's two different dinim. You can't compare Ma'isa to Ari Mikla. The Amish is talking about Ari Mikla with Akoil Hoylach Achar Noif. It goes bust of the branches. But by Ma'isa, then it depends where you are. What's the Svar to be Mechalik? She explains Ma'isa b'choyme tol rachmana. Ma'isa depends on the wall, because the passage says if you have to eat the Ma'isa sheni in Yerushalayim. So it all depends, are you in Yerushalayim or not? Ari Mikla b'dira tol rachmana. However, Ari Mikla depends on living. But noifoi mistalei be'ikroi loy mistalei. Where does a person usually spend time? You spend time on the branches of the tree, not by the root. So therefore, the whole tree is determined based on the branches. So that's the Gemara's original answer to be miyash of the stira between the Mishnah Ma'aser Sheni and our Mishnah over here, to say that the Mishnah over here is a din miyuchad in Ari Miklat. When it comes to Ma'aser Sheni, so the din in what's considered Yerushalayim or not, it's wherever you are. It doesn't make a difference. The fact that half the tree is here and half the tree is there, we separate different parts of the tree. And we mechalik with the svar. Now the Gemara is going to challenge that distinction. You're making a distinction between Ma'aser Sheni and Ari Miklat, as if by Ma'aser Sheni everyone agrees it's the connect wherever you are, and by Ari Miklat, Hakol Hoylach Achar Noif, the Rami Ma'aser, the Gemara now says no, but we have a stira within the rules of Ma'aser Sheni. Once we have a stira within the rules of the Ma'aser Sheni, it doesn't help us to answer the original question of Ma'aser Sheni has one din and Ari Miklat has another, because we have a problem within Ma'aser Sheni alone which we have to deal with. And if whatever way we can solve that problem, probably will work with regards to the stira between Ma'aser and Ari Miklat as well. So let's just first see what the stira is internally within Ma'aser Sheni. V'rami Ma'aser, the Tanya. So here we have a gersa the Tanya, but I think it's a Mishnah. It's Nan. I think it's a Mishnah in it's a Mishnah in Maestris, I think, not Ma'aser Sheni. Yeah. Maestris. The problem over here is that it's not just talking about, it's talking about both Ma'aser Sheni and Ari Miklat, because it says B'Yushalayim Hoylach Achar Noif. But Ari Miklat Hoylach Achar Noif. It doesn't make a difference whether we're talking about Yerushalayim, the dinner of Ma'aser Sheni, Benegeh to eating Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim and being koida outside of Yerushalayim. You go bust of the branches. It doesn't make a difference where the tree is or where the person is. If the branches are outside, if the person's underneath any part of the tree or leaning on any part of the tree, we go bust of the knife. No, this is Ma'aser Sheni. B'Yushalayim Hoylach Achar Noif. The ratio of the Mishnah is B'Yushalayim Hoylach Achar Noif, B'Ari Miklat Hoylach Achar Noif. They both go after the knife. And in the Mishnah previously, the Mishnah in Maseches Ma'aser Sheni Kipshuta, it says it depends wherever you are. So it's a steer between the Mishnah in Ma'aser Sheni and the Mishnah in Maestris. The Mishnah in Ma'aser Sheni says it all depends where you are. The Mishnah in Maestris says that whether by Ma'aser Sheni, whether by Ari Miklat Hoylach Achar Noif, the whole tree gets pushed after the branches. If the branches are outside Yerushalayim, it's got the din of outside Yerushalayim. If the branches are inside Yerushalayim, has the din of inside Yerushalayim. So Amr of Kahan says Loi Kasha, Harab Yehuda, Harabana. Taka, it's a machlekes tanoim. There's taka a difference between Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan, Harab Yehuda, Harabanan. The Tani we learned in the Braisa. Rabbi Yehuda Oime, Rabbi Yehuda says with regards to Ma'aser Sheni, B'ma'ara Hoylach Achar Pisli. Have a cave. So the cave is somewhat in Yerushalayim, somewhat outside Yerushalayim. Says Rabbi Yehuda that you go bust at the door, wherever the door is. If the cave is opening to outside Yerushalayim, it doesn't matter whether the cave goes the whole way deep into Yerushalayim, it's considered outside Yerushalayim, and vice versa as well. If the door of the cave, the opening of the cave is in Yerushalayim, and it doesn't matter if the Mari goes outside Yerushalayim, it's considered inside Yerushalayim. The Ilon Hoylach Achar Noifai. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. The Hilon Hoylach Achar Noifai. So here we have clearly Rabbi Yehuda who says that even by Ma'aser Sheni, we go bust at the Noif. So we say like this: the Mishnah in Maestris, which says you go after the knife, is Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah in Ma'aser Sheni, which says you go after wherever you are, it doesn't make a difference. We chop the ilon in tree in half, and whatever's by inside the wall is considered Yerushalayim. Whatever is considered outside is outside. That's going according to the Rabban and Rabbi Yehuda, the Stam Mishnah, which doesn't say any names. And the Mishnah, and now that we've answered that, by the way, our Mishnah over here, when we get to Ir Mikla, which says Hakol Hoylach Achar Noif, is Rabbi Yehuda. Taka the Rabban would argue we don't have to be mechalek between Ma'aser Sheni and Ir Miklat. we close it from the original chiluk between Ma'aser Sheni and Eir Miklat, and basically what we're left with at this stage, and you have to emphasize this stage because there's different stages of the Gemara. At this stage, we're left with saying that if Yehuda says you go basa the Noiv, and the Rabbanan say it all depends where you are. So now the Gemara, let's pause for a moment and do Rashi. Pause for a moment and do Rashi. Rashi says we did the Mishnah. We did Rashi in the Mishnah, but the Gemara Ilon Shu'oim Bifnim B'Yerushalayim Hagoy Sabach Dalad. Hagoy Sabach Dalad says Le'inyin Achilas Ma'aser Sheni B'Yerushalayim Yishnoya, right? And it's a B'negei Achilas Ma'aser Sheni. Mikneged Achayim Alma Lo Noif Yishadina Basa Ikad Lo Ikad Basa Noif. We don't say that part of the branches get considered based on where the trunk is, or vice versa. That the trunk is Basa the Noif. So we have a stira. Our Mishnah said Basa Noif, and here we say that it's just depending where you are. So the Gemara answers the first stage is a difference to make a differentiation between Eir Miklat and Ma'aser Sheni. In Rashi, the second to the B'choy Metal Rachmana, the Rashi B'choy Metal Rachmana, third to last Rashi on the page. B'choy Metal Rachmana, B'chsiv Ifnei Hashem Lekach Tekleinu, but by Eir Miklat B'dira Tal Rachmana, B'chsiv Ki B'Eir Miklat Yeshev. So it's all depending on the place which is roy to be living. When it comes to this Ilon, the Noif is the main Dira element of the tree, so therefore goes Basa. Noif and Noif, the Dira Yosem Ikra. Yerushalayim, the Inyan Ma'aser Hoylech Achar Noif. So now asking a stira, that we have a Mishnah, which says that Yerushalayim Inyan Ma'aser Hoylech Achar Noif, which goes against the Mishnah Ma'aser Sheni. So the Gemara answers Lekasha Harib Yehuda Rabbanon. The Tani we take a see in a brisa that if Yehuda Oime b'Mara Hoylech Achar Pischa be'Ilon Hoylech Achar Noif. So it's Rashi. If Yehuda the Inyan Ma'aser Amar Misi Tumat Ma'aser. Amar Lemilse Hoylech Achar Pischa Kula Bifnim Upsucha Lechutz Kelechutz. If the whole Ma'ira is inside Yerushalayim, but the opening of the Ma'ira goes outside Yerushalayim, it's considered outside Yerushalayim. You can't eat Ma'aser Sheni there, and you can be paida. Kula b'chutz Upsucha Lifnim Kelifnim. However, if the whole Ma'ira is outside Yerushalayim and it's open to inside Yerushalayim, then it's considered like inside Yerushalayim. You could eat Ma'aser Sheni in the Ma'ira, and you cannot be paida. Just 1 second. Let me just finish the last Rashi. And the Ilon Hoylech Achar Noifai. Or Masnisin Dahacha. Okay, so you have to be goyis. It's not really a brayse. Yeah, Masnisin Dahacha Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, meaning the Mishnah by us in Masaches Makkos, which says you go basa noif le'er mikla, and the Mishnah in Maisris, which says you go basa noif even for Ma'aser Sheni is Rabbi Yehuda. Or Masnisin de Ilon Shoim Bifnim B'chol, the Mishnah in Ma'aser Sheni, which says it all goes basa the geographical location. In your words, is Rabbanan b'shinuya kama less, says Rashi, and we don't hold to the first teretz. What's the svara? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, especially with regards to Ma'aser Sheni. In other words, when we understood the first stage of the Gemara that we go, that there's a special din of Dira, so talk about Ma'aser Sheni.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
What's the question?
Can the Goyal Adam kill somebody who's leaning on a tree? No, it's leaning by the trunk. He's sitting on the trunk. He's leaning on the trunk of the tree. The branches are outside Yerushalayim, or the other way around. But the trunk is inside, not Yerushalayim. The trunk is in the Eir Miklat, or in the tchum of the Eir Miklat, shall we say? So the Mishnah says, and the understanding at this point is Bein Kula Bein Chumra, that by Ma'aser Sheni Bein Kula Bein Chumra, and by Eir Miklat, it all depends whether he's inside or outside. The whole
Basically standing on the ground, you're touching within on the tree. So now you're outside. The branches are outside.
I think the tree is like one location. We don't want to split up the tree into two categories. So we say you go bust of the knife. Yeah, and I'm not. I don't know exactly this far, to be honest, at this point. Adrab, in this situation, the chiddush is clearly when he's leaning on the trunk of the tree. He's standing by the trunk of the tree. He's standing by the part of the tree which is next to the trunk, and the knife is in a different location than he is.
Yeah, I get that. But I'm saying, does the person need to be like? What's the criteria to be? You're under the tree, like what's?
I'd imagine under the tree. Yeah. Anywhere under the tree. Yeah. So now the Gemara asks a kasha, and basically the Gemara is going to challenge and say the Gemara doesn't. Also, by the Sfar Chitzoin of the Gemara seems to be a little bit like you're saying that in other words, that the geographical location really should be the Kaiveya, and therefore we don't really want to say that Koil Hoylech Achar Noif, and that's why the Gemara Taka says that even though we found Rabbi Yehuda who says clearly that Be'ilan Hoylech Achar Noif, but let's limit Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, there's no raya that Rabbi Yehuda would apply it across the board, meaning that we would only apply Noif l'chumra, not l'kula. Let's see inside. Aimur the shamis leila Rabbi Yehuda gabi ma'isa l'chumra. Just because of Rabbi Yehuda, we have a brayso which says, that Rabbi Yehuda, just because we found the brayso that Rabbi Yehuda says that when you get to ma'isa sheni, we go basa the noif, doesn't mean that by ir mikla would be the same. That's going to be the Gemara's kasha. Aimur the shamis leila Rabbi Yehuda gabi ma'isa l'chumra. True, you found a brayso where Rabbi Yehuda says clearly we go basa the noif, but l'chura we only heard Rabbi Yehuda saying this in gabi ma'isa, by ma'isa where there's a chumrah. By ma'isa, there's a chumrah each way. Right? Inside Yerushalayim, there's a chumrah and kula in each location. Inside Yerushalayim, there's a chumrah that you can't be paida, but you can't eat it, either ma'isa sheni. And outside Yerushalayim, the chumrah is that you can't. The chumrah is that you cannot eat ma'isa sheni, and the kula is that you can be paida. So the Gemara wants to say, I'll say outside first. The Gemara is going to say that maybe when we say we go after the knife, he means the chumrah. The geographical location is important. So if you're outside of Yerushalayim, you can't eat ma'isa sheni. The vart is that if the knife goes into Yerushalayim, you have also the chumrah. In other words, he was suffer. By chat is that he was mesupak. When he said you go after the knife, he doesn't mean you go after the knife. He means you also go after the knife. He was mesupak. Maybe the geographical location is the main thing, but maybe even if you're in one place, if the knife goes somewhere else, you get dragged basa that, and therefore he said you go to chumrah both ways. So in the case of ma'isa, it makes sense because there is a chumrah both ways. There is a chumrah both ways, right? If you're geographically located outside Yerushalayim and the knife is inside Yerushalayim, what Rabbi Yehuda is telling you is you cannot be paida. But he would agree you can't eat the ma'isa sheni because the ma'isa you're outside of Yerushalayim. So that's what the Gemara says. Aim with the shaman says Rabbi Yehuda gabi ma'isa l'chumra, where you have a chumrah each way, and now he teaches ois. The Gemara teaches ois. Ikri b'chutz v'noif b'fnim. If the tree is outside Yerushalayim and the branches are inside, so the chumrah is as follows. So even though you're ba'etzem outside of Yerushalayim, the chumrah is that just because the branches are inside, so just like by the branches, if you're mamish on the branches or underneath those branches, you wouldn't be able to do padiyah, you wouldn't be able to pay the ma'aser sheni be'ikri nami le'matzipar. Even though you're standing by the trunk and the trunk is outside Yerushalayim, he's giving you a chumrah that you can't be paid because the knife goes inside. And conversely, the other way around, if the trunk is inside Yerushalayim and you're by the trunk, the person's by the trunk, and the branches are outside, what's the chumrah? The chumrah is that even though you're inside Yerushalayim, you think you should be able to eat ma'aser sheni. We say no, you're not allowed to eat ma'aser sheni. So the Gemara is saying that just because Rabbi Yehuda said you go boss the knife and ma'aser sheni, that doesn't mean he really holds of knife. It means he's sefukim misafka, and he's telling you go l'chumrah boss the knife. He's not going to say you can never take a kula based on the knife. He's saying that if you're in one place and the dinner, so you have to take the chumrah of the place you are, obviously, but also the chumrah of the place where the knife is. That is how the Gemara wants to understand Rabbi Yehuda basically, and saying that that's a possible. The point the Gemara is really saying is that that's a possible explanation of Rabbi Yehuda. He's talking about ma'aser sheni, where there's a chumrah each way. Alagabe ari mikla, but by ir mikla there's no such thing. By ir mikla, if you say you go bust the knife, ultimately you're saying a chumrah, you're saying a kula. There's no chumrah and kula. Let's explain. It's true that if you have a situation where the trunk is outside of Yerushalayim and he's outside of the chum of the ir mikla, yeah. True that if the trunk is outside of the chum of the ir mikla, and he's also, so you're making a chumrah that the goy adam can't kill him because the branches are inside. Just like if he was taka underneath the branches, the goy adam wouldn't be able to kill because the branches are inside the ir miklat or inside the tchum of the ir miklat. But ikrinami loy matzikatale. So taka, that's understood. Such a situation where the trunk is outside and the branches are inside, we can understand what the Mishnah is saying. You go bust the knife because as a chumrah we're giving that. Although technically speaking, geographically speaking, he's outside of the ir miklat, he's outside of the tchum of the ir miklat. Because the knife is inside, we say goy adam, you can't kill him. So that's understood. That you could kind of extrapolate from the case of Rabbi Yehuda and say this is Rabbi Yehuda talking. But the other case, the other way around, ela ikroi bifnim. The noifer b'chutz, if the trunk is inside Yerushalayim, inside the ir miklat, inside the tchum of the ir miklat, and the ritzach b'shoyig is leaning on the trunk. He's by the trunk. The noifer b'chutz and the branches are outside. Are you going to tell me that because the knife is outside and worried to be by the branches, the goy adam will be able to kill him? Like he's technically inside, and therefore just because Rabbi Yehuda said the din by ma'aser sheni that you go bust the knife, doesn't mean anything but negate to us because by Ma'aser Sheni there's a chumrah in both ways round. By Ir Miklat. What do you mean? The Vart is like this. The Gemara wants to find the man the Amma. The Gemara has a problem with our Mishnah. Essentially, this is where we the Mahalacha Sugi is like this. The Mishnah says that by Ir Miklat we go bust of the knife both ways. The Gemara has an issue with saying that somebody who's mamish in the tchum of the Ir Miklat, who's mamish in the tchum, but because the knife of the tree which he's standing under goes outside, the Goy Adam should be able to kill him. So the Gemara asks a kasha that by Ma'aser Sheni we see otherwise, that it depends mamish where you are. So the Gemara answers first of all by making a distinction between Ma'aser Sheni and Ir Miklat. But then the Gemara challenges that just a second, no, we can't say that chiluk because by Ma'aser Sheni itself we have a chiluk between Rabbi Yehuda and we have a stira, we have a kasha, we have the Mishnah Ma'aser and the Mishnah Ma'aser Sheni. The Mishnah Ma'aser Sheni says where you are, and the Mishnah Ma'aser Sheni says you go bust of the knife. So we do see that you go bust of the knife. So what the Gemara says, don't worry, ha Rabbi Yehuda ha Rabbana. So now the Gemara is basically saying that that's not a good answer because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't tell me that much. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't tell me that you go bust of the knife bein lekula bein lechumra. Since Rabbi Yehuda is talking about Ma'aser Sheni, ein lecha bo ele chidusha basically, right? Since Rabbi Yehuda could be explained in a more limited version that he's saying you go bust of the knife lechumra, and there's a chumra each way round. In other words, whichever way, whether the ikar is in Yerushalayim or the ikar is outside of Yerushalayim. So just say that that's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying, and you've got no raya for the case of Ir Miklat, and for that matter, I think the way the Mefarshim explained, you don't have a raya b'negeh to the Mishnah in Maasros as well, because the Mishnah says Yerushalayim hoylach acharnoi, but Ir Miklat hoylach acharnoi. It doesn't. It compares to Yerushalayim to Ir Miklat, puts them together. So it sounds like just like by Ir Miklat, it's both.
There would be a reason to say that Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda.
Right. In other words, you don't have a reason to say it's Rabbi Yehuda, right? Because Rabbi Yehuda is limited. Let's just really quickly not read the whole thing. Eimud Desham is Rabbi Yehuda gabe Ma'aser lechumra, and then you have the whole thing. But so okay, so that's the kasha. Maybe take a pause and let's do Rashi on this question, or did we not do? Where did we start? Okay. Yeah. We did that one actually. Yeah. How can you say? Not just the kasha is not just on the Mishnah by us, but rather the question is also been negayah to the Mishnah in Maseches Maasros, which says B'Yerushalayim hoylech acharnoi, but Rabbi Yehuda hanich itana b'chada. So Rashi explains very nicely. Hanich itana b'chada B'Yerushalayim hoylech acharnoi v'lo itana bar miklat. If the Mishnah Maasros just spoke about Ma'aser Sheni and said B'Yerushalayim hoylech acharnoi, and wouldn't talk at all about Ari Miklat hoylech acharnoi, motzisa moikim like Rabbi Yehuda. You could say it's like Rabbi Yehuda. Avol hash the man says l'cha. Why should you say it's Rabbi Yehuda? Why not? Eimur the Sham is Rabbi Yehuda gabe Ma'aser be'ilan hoylech acharnoi mishum de'ikilemeim l'chumra bein ikar b'fnim neif b'chutz bein ikar b'chutz neif b'fnim. There's a chumra each way, whether the ikar is b'fnim or whether the ikar is b'chutz. The gabi Ma'aser ikar bein b'fnim bein b'chutz chadu l'chumra v'chadu l'kula. By Ma'aser Sheni, you have a whether inside, whether outside, you have a chumra and kula in each one. Kula, what's the chumra? Chayim b'fnim b'chutz sheb'chutz yachal lifdois u'mifnim ein yachal lifdois. One chumra is in the pnim you can be paida. Sorry, in the pnim you can't be in the chutz you can be paida, and in the pnim you can't be paida. The kaltule mechitzas. So once the Ma'aser Sheni comes in, that's too late. There's a chumra in outside rather than inside. She'ein nechel b'chutz b'loy pediya, or b'fnim oichel b'loy pediya, with regards to actually eating Ma'aser Sheni. The ekilemeima ki amar Rabbi Yehuda hoylech acharnoi l'chumra amar kedim farish v'azar. As the right. But once you say the Mishnah is putting Ir Miklat next to Ma'aser Sheni in the same Mishnah in Maasros, so then you have to say that just like by Ir Miklat we're going the whole way bust of the knife. So also going to get to Ma'aser Sheni as well. Bein the kula, bein the chumra. Let's continue. Ikar b'chutz v'noif v'mifnim hoylech acharnoi v'enim pediya. You go bust the knife v'enim pediya. In other words, that we give it the chumra of pnim. Ikar v'mifnim v'noif v'lechutz hoylech acharnoi v'enim achila. The mishti ikar bust the knife. You throw the root. You consider the root to be where the branches are. But also la'oichloi be'ikroi alim kin pedoi koydem shenichnas. Is that what I go to back out? Mi koydem shenichnas. Okay. But by Ari Miklat, you have to say that the case of ikru b'fnim, where the trunk of the Ir Miklat, where the trunk of the tree, is within the tchum of the Ir Miklat, and the branches are outside, you're going to give a kula based on going bust of the knife, and that you don't see from Rabbi Yehuda. So you can't say. In other words, since the Mishnah, maybe I said it slightly inaccurately earlier, but since the Mishnah in Maestros says like this, the Mishnah in Maestros says that we go bust of the knife, but it's not just talking about Maestros Sheni, it's talking about Ari Miklat alone. And by Ari Miklat, forget about Maestros Sheni for a moment. By Ari Miklat, which is in that Mishnah, going bust of the knife means going bust of the knife l'kula by definition. If you're talking about, especially if you're talking about whether the ikr is outside or whether the ikr is inside. In one of the cases, you're going to go bust l'kula. You can't say that Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda because Rabbi Yehuda never told you that much. Rabbi Yehuda in the Brides was only talking about Ma'aseh Sheni, where there's makom to say that he's only saying you go bust a knife l'chum. Okay, so that's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara answers, Omar. That's the who's our Mishnah and who's the Mishnah in Maestros? You don't have any hechuk to say it's Rabbi Yehuda.
Either that or we'll explain the stira. Either that or is there a distinction?
You can't say there's a distinction between Ma'aseh Sheni and Ari Mikla either, because the Mishnah in Maestros puts them together.
Why do you have to be hechuk to go to Rabbi Yehuda? Why can't you do it now?
Well, say there's a third Tana.
No, why does it be a hechuk?
Otherwise it's a stira. Otherwise you've got a stira. The Mishnah in Ma'aseh Sheni says wherever you are.
No, I can say it's like Rabbi Yehuda.
Why do you have to say that Rabbi Yehuda is limited?
It could be this way. It could also not be this way.
You're right. That's right. So what the Gemara is basically saying. Yeah.
But this is might as well the way Gemara.
Yeah, but why? Yeah. Rabbi Yehuda, Harabana means the Gemara is packed. In order to say you're right. The truth is, in order to say an answer, you don't need a hacker. Rabbi Yehuda, you could say it's Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara is challenging and saying, what do you mean? I think a driving force, I'm not sure about this. I think a driving force behind the Mahalach HaSugya over here is that the Gemara can't fathom and doesn't like the idea, and you'll soon see that's almost the maskara, doesn't like the idea that a person is be'emes in one place, and you say you go bust a knife, l'kola.
In other words, if you want to say Rabbi Yehuda,
yeah, exactly. That's what I think. Rabbi Yehuda has to say clearly. If Rabbi Yehuda only talks about Ma'aseh Sheni, then all I know is Rabbi Yehuda maybe saying it l'chumra but not l'kola, and we need to find a makar that you go bust a knife l'kola. So the Gemara answers two tirutzim, which both kind of qualify what we said earlier. And Taka, according to both answers, we don't go bust a knife l'kola. Let's first see inside. Amar, I think since it's Rabbi. I go to Bach Aleph. Amar Rabba, I don't know why. It's the hechrik to say it's Rabba, but okay. Amar Rabba. So he says like this. No, but ikr the kula alma loy pligi the loy matzah kato. So Amar Rabba, the ikra the kula alma loy pligi the loy matzah kato. You have to read koi be ikra. Oh, that's what the back's doing. Okay, it's not just Amar Rabba. Now it reads. Yeah, you have to read it with the back. Yeah, Amar Rabba koi be ikra. Yeah, not the ikra. Amar Rabba koi be ikra. If he's standing by the ikra, the kula alma loy pligi the loy matzah kato. In other words, we're talking about this situation where the ikar is bifnim and the knife is outside. That's what's bothering us. If the ikar is in bifnim and the knife is outside, how can you say you go bust the knife for color? And you don't see Rabbi Yehuda saying that. Rabbi Yehuda is only talking about Ma'aseh Sheni, where there's a chumrah each way. So you don't know that you say you go bust the knife for color. So what's takab pshat in the Mishnah by us and in the Mishnah in Maestros where we say you go bust the knife and you get to the din of Ir Miklat where it must be l'kula in a situation where the ikar is in the pnim and the knife is in the chutz. So Amarabba be'ikroi, koi be'ikroi, the kula alma loy pligi the loy matzikato. If he's taken by the ikar, for sure you can't kill him because he's inside. And we don't say you go bust a knife to color. We don't say that because the knife's outside, therefore the goy ladam can kill him. But knife if the ritzech is on the branches which are outside, and the goy ladam has the ability to shoot arrows up there or throw pebbles, rocks at him, the kula alma loy pligi the matzikato. Everyone would agree that you could kill him. No difference in Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan because ultimately he's outside. So really it depends on where you are, inside or outside. Ki pligi. So what does going bust of the knife mean? So we're giving a new pshat to going bust of the knife. Ki pligi b'mahave ikri dargul knife. The machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan is whether you can use whether the goy ladam is allowed to go into the city and climb up the tree. Very interesting. Climb up the tree to get to the knife to kill him. Ma'asava have ikri dargul knife. One man dama. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda says that the ikr can be a darga to the knife, and the goy ladam can kill the ritzeh by you going into the ir miklat. And in other words, the trunk is inside the tchum of the ir miklat.
Where's he standing?
So why does he have to climb? He's already in the miklat. Where's
Who?
the guy standing outside?
The goy ladam is not allowed to come into the ir miklat and use the ir miklat. This is the point. There's a din. It's not for
Is he allowed to
Shaliman.
shoot into
Just
the
one
air
second. Huh?
mikvah? Is he allowed to shoot into the air mikvah?
No.
If the Ritzeich in the air miklat, he's koilet. He's protected. That's what the air miklat does.
Right, but you can't shoot him from the outside with chitzim.
It depends where he is. If he's in the ikar, for sure you can't kill him, right? But by whether the goy ladam is, it all depends where the ritzech is. If the ritzech is inside by the trunk, we don't say a koil hoilechach knife. The color that the knife considers it makes the whole tree as if it's outside. We've rejected that. So what taka does it mean when the Mishnah says it by us and by Mishnah in the Maestros that ilon shu oimed? What's the ilon shu oimed besoichat chum benoif benoite chutz chum a koil hoilechach knife? Right. The simple reading of it is mashma that if he's by the trunk, the goy ladam can kill him because the knife is outside and we go bust the knife. So we say no. So what's takum shat? Shat is like this. There's a din that you're not allowed to use the air miklat. The goy ladam is not allowed to use the air miklat to kill. You can't use anything in the air miklat in order to kill the the goy ladam won't be able to go into the air miklat and shoot from the air miklat into the outside.
Okay.
So the question over here is merely if the trunk of the tree, the Indian being using is considered outside or inside.
Outside. And this tree.
The Ritzeich is where?
Ritzeich is outside.
On the knife, on the branches, exactly.
On
the branches, under the branches, Lamazangan, yeah.
No, anywhere.
I think it's no.
Why?
As long as he's standing outside. As long as he's standing outside.
Yeah, I hear you. But the lashon of the Gemara is, I hear what you're saying. The lashon of the Gemara is
Let's say he doesn't have arrows. He wants to go straight.
Ki pligi, he doesn't have arrows. Exactly, he has to strangle him. Ki pligi mahava ikir dargra knife. It must have an ikir dargra knife. Rabbi Yehuda holds that the trunk of the tree is considered boss of the knife le'inyan, that it's considered outside but negay the goy ladam, using it to kill the goy ladam who's by the knife. Or ma'asav alev ikir dargra knife. That is the opinion of Rabbi. Okay, let's do Rashi, and hopefully he'll help us out a little bit. We're sticking with this var that Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbanan have a simple svara. I don't care. You cut the tree in half. Wherever the person is, whether by Ma'is Sheni, whether by our miklat, that's what it's considered. Like the first Mishnah, which is Ma'is Sheni, says that depending where he is. But Rabbi Yehuda argues that sometimes, that's almost really what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. Sometimes the ik is basanai. Okay, the ka'amras. We is sticking with the aim of the shamas where we say that we only go basanai l'chumra. So the Indian Ma'isa Kedarman, Indian Ma'isa, it's very simple what the Chumrah is. In other words, that we take the Chumras of both, and since the knife is outside of Yerushalayim, so you can't eat it. Or if the knife's inside, you can't be paid it. Or the Indian Miklat, so the Indian air Miklat, there's Taka Chumrah, right? According to Rabbanon, let's say he was by the trunk, which was outside. Yeah? And the branches are inside, the Goy Adam could kill. Because Rabbanon just say, where am I? Rabbi Yehuda will say he cannot kill in such a situation because the knife is in the pnim, right? So we still said we go bas knife l'chumra. The question is just the other way around. What's pshat hakoy holachach knife when the ikar is inside and the knife is outside? So then we get to this shad. Yeah, they're not using the tree. Well, the Indian miklat heichad the ikar because the knife is in the chumra he shad the ikar bas knife. The imritzeich the ikar lo imatzi katale. Even if the ritzeich is by the trunk which is outside, you can't kill him because the knife is inside. The heichad the ikar b'fnim the knife b'chutz. If the trunk is inside and the branches are outside, the Ka'ama by Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda says you go bust the knife, but Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say it clearly, but the Mishnah says it, but and we're saying that it's Rabbi Yehuda. Lav lemishti ikre bust the knife. He's not coming to tell me that the trunk is mamish considered as if it's by where the branches is, or the branches are outside. Ula meimer, and to say, Agoy sabach hey, ula meimer. Ki heichi de benoifim matzi katal le beikinami matzi katal. Come, that can't be. The beikr shebifnim kol amri pigid le matzi katal. The heichi de koyrit sech benoifish shebechutz. V'yochel lam goy ladam lam chutz l'tchum l'hagi b'chitz mitzrayis kol amri pigid matzi katal. If the tzech is mamish outside, for sure you can kill him. The kol amri noif basa ikelo shadinam. No one says the other way around that you take the branches and say the branches are considered wherever the trunk is. So ki plig what's taken machlokes in Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan. Ki plig the kam Rabbi Yehuda haylach knife. Rabbi Yehuda says you go bust the knife. When you get to the air miklat, the mehavi ikri dargil neifish. You can't go adam b'seichat chum. The goy adam should be able to go into the chum. The yala derech go up the trunk, climb the tree. The yargenu b'noifik ka'amar and kill him on the branches. The chihach kula less the Rabbi Yehuda. You have to go this. The chihach kula less the Rabbi Yehuda. What? The chihach kula it's the Rabbi Yehuda. That's good.
No. says it changes it to less.
He changes it to less, yeah. I'm not sure I understand. I'm saying. V'chihach kula leslie the v'chihach kula leslie Rabbi Yehuda. This kula Rabbi Yehuda doesn't have. So lav ikar shadi basa noif ela kol chat kidekai.
Again, the tree is considered out. Is considered inside.
Wherever the person is, that's what
Wherever
really
the
matters.
person-
But
he
since the
agrees-
person,
he agrees with the Chacham. He agrees with the Rabbanan that wherever the person is, that's where it is. That's where it's considered. Unless, no, if he's standing by the trunk of the tree and the branches are sticking inside the tchum, if the trunk is outside of the tchum, the branches.
there's
are
two
sticking
differences
inside
between
the
Rabbi Yehuda
tchum.
and Rabbanan. One is if the you want to say yourself, huh?
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. There's two differences. One is if the trunk is outside and the branches are inside.
Right.
And he's standing by the trunk. The
But
Rabbanan would
Yehuda
say,
goes with Chumrah. And we found the Chumrah that when the trunk is inside.
whether the trunk is inside the tchum,
I'm just curious. Trees have sometimes branches on both sides, right?
right? So it means if some of the branches are outside. I'm just thrown off by this Islam and Nestle. I have to admit, I'm thrown off over it. In other words, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the lav ikashadi basa neif ala kol chat kidukai. Ki hakol less than Rabbi Yehuda. The lav ikashadi basa neif ala kol chat kidukai. Saying you don't go basa neif. So what's pshat in the Mishnah? But the Mishnah says akol halach achar. The way I understood it was akol halach achar means, according to this pshat, that the ikar is considered. Oh, exactly. Very good. The ikar is considered. Yeah, exactly. Rabbi Yehuda says akol halach achar, and the ikar is considered. No, the ikar is considered outside, and therefore the goy ladam can use it.
Or it's considered outside in that sense.
But that's why I don't understand the gears to the back. I learned it without the gears to the first. But then the Hemshech doesn't read.
All right.
Let's come back to you on the exact details. But the way I understood it was, I have to double check now. The way I understood it is means that the ikr is considered to be outside, and the goy adam can use, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the ikr to kill the person. According to Rabban, you wouldn't be able to. He's inside the mice. He's outside. The Ritzeich's by the knife. If the Ritzeich's standing by the ikr, everyone would agree that you wouldn't be able to.
You would not be able to.
Exactly. Rav Ashi has a much simpler answer. Rav Ashi Omar, my achar noif, af achar noif. In other words, it's a schwer to fit into the words, but ultimately what he's saying is, when the Mishnah says akol olech achar noif, it just means af achar noif. So we also go lechumra after the noif. Let's see Rashi. Rashi Omar, my achar noif become a season the hachav b'chein brayis bari miklat af achar noif. Rabbi Yehuda is taka Rabbi Yehuda. V'kul lechumra. Well, in Ma'aseh kiddush shaninan, by Ma'aseh it's very clear that we go bas the noif lechumra. Each case has a chumra, whether the ikar is in the pnim or the ikar is in the chutz. In each case, there's a chumra that either you can't be paid it or you can't eat the Ma'aseh sheni. Or in miklot af achar noif kama, which means to say as follows: the heicha the ikar b'chutz, the noif b'fnim. If the trunk is outside and the branches are inside, so shadi ikra basa noif lechumra v'loy teim kidekai kai. In such a situation, so that's the same, right? That when the ikar is in the chutz, the trunk is outside and the branches are inside. So the Rabbanan would say, I don't care where the branches are. He's outside. He's standing by the trunk, so you can kill him. Rabbi Yehuda will say, no, you go also bust the knife, which is our mission over here. Means also after the knife. But if the ikar is in the pnim and the knife b'chutz shadi noifi basa ikra v'loy matzi katul b'neifi. That if the ikar is in the pnim and the knife is in the chutz, so then you can't even kill b'noifai. Here's a knetch over here that we actually the knife goes basa the ikar l'chumra. Or mishum de v'chol gemara shadin on knife basa ikar. It's chachach l'meimed that in mikkan zimnin the shadin on ikar basa knife l'chumra. In other words, what Rashi is bothered by is what do you mean akol holech achar knife? It's not going basa knife. You're saying you go both ways l'chumra. Why tell me akol holech achar knife and meaning af achar knife? They also go basa the knife. So the answer is because in other halachas, in other places, we always define a tree based on the ikar. So over here that we're saying that you go the chumra basa the knife, so we use the terminology akol holech achar knife.
Ikar is the ikar, but you go bust the knife l'chumra.
Yeah, according to Rav Ashi, there's going to be a there's going to be a chumra which doesn't exist.
Chumrah means you can't kill.
Yeah, there's going to be a chumra which doesn't exist according to Rabbi. It is confused.
You think the other way around.
Chumra is not to kill, obviously.
Yeah, well,
Fine. Okay, we have a few more minutes. Let's try and go a little further. The next two is pretty straightforward. Okay. I hope we did justice to this, but yeah. Okay. The Mishnah. Hareg ba'isa yeah. Hareg ba'isa, the Mishnah inside. Hareg ba'isa go to Mishkan Nishkana. Basically, talking about situation. It's much easier. We're talking about the Ritzech was already in the Mikvah for killing once. Yeah, and when he was in the Mikvah, luck had it, whatever luck.
Or he lived in the Mikvah, right?
Yeah, but that's not the limit chat that no, not that he lived in the Mikvah. First, you'll see the second half of the Mishnah is talking about when we're talking about someone who lives in the Mikvah. Hareg ba'isa goil.
Non-killers live in the Mikvah.
Oh, so I don't think generally they did, but Levium did. So that's the safe of the Mishnah. Hareg ba'isa goil mishkan lishkan. If someone's killed in the Mikvah, in other words, the Ritzech b'shoy killed the second time. Goyle mishchon l'shchona, he has to go from one. He has to kind of limit himself within the Mikvah to go from one neighborhood to another neighborhood, and he can't go back to the first neighborhood. But Ben Levi goyle me'ileh means Ben Levi who lives in the city goyle me'ileh, which according to many doesn't mean that he has to go from one city to the other city, but he has an option. He can go to another city if he wants. If he wants, he can also go mishchon l'shchona. But the point is that he can go to another city. The Ritzech who kills b'shoygeg can, because the first goyle adam will get him, right? But what about the second goyle? The second goyle adam, so he has to limit.
Free pass from one city to the next.
Well, he's taking a risk that while he's running.
Levi's also taking a risk to go from one city to the next.
Because while he's running.
Yeah. He has permission. He's saying,
but he
can.
The person also has.
He's not exposing himself to the person.
Maybe he is.
He's not allowed to leave there.
Who's not allowed in there? Yeah. He's also not like that.
It's not a Levi, also can't leave.
Goyle now? Goyle doesn't live in the What do you mean?
He does.
He doesn't necessarily.
Oh, you're right.
His father does it.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever, his father was visiting the city. I don't know. There's all sorts of it. Hari boy say goyle mishkan. Mishkan ben Levi goyle me'ile. Rashi. Hari boy say ritzeach shegol le'ermikla. Yeah, Rashi teaches us. Ritzeach who is goyle le'ermikla. Because of Hari boy say b'shay you killed goyle mishkan. Mishkan b'soicha ikimino. Ir eino rashai lot says. It's not just that he's not allowed to go out when they ritzich rishayna, right? Like you said. Or ben Levi shu meyoyshve eva Hari b'shay goyle me'ile. Shu rashai lot says mino ish loy golasham. Since he's allowed to, so he can be goyle me'ile. Some takas say there's an option to go mishkan if he wants as well.
The first guy is allowed.
He's not allowed to. No. So then also you're not allowed to leave. It's not just that's the thing. Ir mikvah isn't just that to save yourself from the goyim. It's also an einish that this is where you have to be. That's galus. Tanya Rabbanan says the Gemara, a brayso, that we learn out of psukim. Yeah. V'samti l'cha makayim. What does the pasuk say? V'samti l'cha makayim. Because Baruch says Moshe Rabbeinu v'samti l'cha makayim. So there's two pshatim in Samti L'cha Makam. It's read the Samti L'cha and L'cha Makam. So first of all, we've the first. Samti L'cha b'chayecha. Right? That when it says Samti L'cha, what he's basically saying is that I'm giving you, Moshe Rabbeinu, an opportunity to do it in your lifetime. And then L'cha Makam is mimkoimcha. Meaning to say, okay. He's changed the gears. I don't think he is. He's talking about something else. Okay. So v'samti l'cha means b'chayecha, and when it says l'cha makom, right? We dorish makom going l'cha means mimkoimcha. Ashayon and from your place will be ashayon neshama. Melami, this teaches Yisroel megalan b'midbar that the Yidden before the Ir Mikvah was set up, where would the Ritzech run? They also had the goals, and that's from l'cha makom. L'cha makom meaning the makom mimkoimcha, from your makom where you Moshe Rabbeinu live, which is in the machne leviyah. That would be the place where the Yidden would go to Golos if they killed in the middle before the Ari Mikvah were established. And now we continue. Mikan amru, from here we learn that Ben Levi shahara goyla miplach leplach im gola lepalcha palcha kolte. That Ben Levi who kills can go from one city to another city. This is how we're learning. You have him gola lepalcha, but if he stayed in the same city and he went from one shchona to another shchona, palcha kolte also works. How do you learn that from the psukim? Let's see Rashi. Samti l'cha b'chayecha kan ifticha kadosh baruch hu l'Moshe yizkel mitzvah b'chayev shehivdil shalosh aron makom bimkoimcha in your place. Shetei machne leviya koilatas. This teaches a machne is leviya koilatas both in the midbar. But af ari mikvah you ari leviya as well, and the ari mikvah will also be ari leviya. We can amar ben levi shara goyim plach leplach. Plach Medina, so Agoy Sabach changes it to area. Pirish air city. Vimgola palka kolta. Vimgola palka kolta. One understanding at least is that the Levi does have an option of going in his same city. He can also be koil if he goes from one shchona to another shchona. One second. Amar Rachabed, this is finished. Amar Rachabed, Ikam Aikra. What's the pasuk which tells me the Polchel Kolte that he can take a go, he can stay in the same city from one shchona to another shchona, it's okay. The pasuk says, it says that he will sit in his ir miklat. It doesn't, besides for the din of going to the ir miklat, there's also a limit over here, that by staying in the ir miklat also works. Meaning to say that that a Levi can stay in his own city and by being goylev mishchona l'shchona, being goylev from one shchona to another shchona, he can be protected. Irsha kolat a city which already protected. Rashi Makra the Polchel Kolte, or the Masisa Nami Ditani goylev mishchona l'shchona. How do we know this? In other words, this is a general marker for the din of being goyla mishchona lishchona be'ir miklati kra yisehu the matzah miktav kisham yeshev, and because it says ki be'ir miklati yeshev, we learn that even in a city which you already were, you can still get protection by going from one shchona to another shchona.